Hello, everybody. The year is drawing to a close. I have no more television to watch in the year 2022. And instead of a ranking, which is what I would usually do, I would rank each show that I saw this year, each season of each show. I'm going to try something new. We're going to try a bracket because I think it could be fun. Let's do it. So yeah, as I said in the intro, I want to try this bracket idea as opposed to just a typical ranking. The way I've done this is that I've taken the Rotten Tomatoes score for each show, and I used how many people have reviewed each show as a tiebreaker, and I've seeded them according to the highest rated on Rotten Tomatoes to the lowest rated. So these ratings that you see here are not my personal subjective opinion. What will be my personal subjective opinion is how each one progresses throughout the bracket. And I will, of course, give you justification for why each thing moves along. You know how brackets work. Brackets are fun. Everybody loves brackets. This is basically March Madness, but for 2022 television. If you like this idea, please let me know. I already have some potential plans to do this for other things in the future, including 2022 movies, which would be much taller order, let's just say that, because there are a lot more films than television shows this year. But without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so let's look at this bracket. Can I zoom in? There you go. Let's do that. I like that view. Okay, so Barry Season 3 gets a bye. It was the highest rated out of any season of television that I watched this year. And then you have the Rings of Power Season 1, the Lord of the Rings Amazon show, versus She-Hulk Season 1. Now, 17 to 16 seeds, so these are pretty close. Rings of Power was a good show. I liked a lot about it. I liked it more than I was expecting to, just because I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Clearly high budget, clearly a ton of effort went into it. If you are a Lord of the Rings fan, this show might be more appealing to you in general because it deals with a lot of the lore, and in general, the whole fantasy element really is very rich there. I had some issues with it, but I did still enjoy it overall, but specifically the pacing there, and that's really a Lord of the Things problem in general with me, is I have an issue with the pacing of these projects. She-Hulk, on the other hand, this one was a lot more controversial this year. Not a ton of people are super fond of this one, but I found it mostly refreshing. I thought it was a fun new concept for the MCU. At times, not the funniest thing. At times, a little, too overboard with its meta commentary, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it, had a fun time with it, and so it is going to move past the Rings of Power in the first round. She-Hulk will be facing Barry in round 2. Then you have Peacemaker Season 1 versus the Book of Boba Fett. And Peacemaker Season 1, obviously, a spin-off of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. A great show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Peacemaker was a character I liked a lot from the movie. I think John Cena is incredible in this role. Pretty funny. Not groundbreaking stuff by any means, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. And it cracked the top 10. I was very surprised when I looked up the ratings for each show this year that it cracked the top 10. The Book of Boba Fett, on the other hand, this is Peacemaker's round to take. Peacemaker is going to walk away with this one because the Book of Boba Fett was one of the worst shows I saw this year. Clunky, a complete mess. The two best episodes were both about everything else in the Star Wars universe besides Boba Fett, and everything including Boba Fett was boring, not interesting whatsoever, and just the worst that Star Wars television can be. And we're going to touch on some other Star Wars TV actually in this bracket, but the Book of Boba Fett will not be moving on past the first round. And then you have Mike versus The Rehearsal Season 1. Mike is a show not a ton of people saw. It is, of course, about Mike Tyson. It got a bit of bad press, I think, because Mike Tyson was not included in the show in general. He wasn't consulted. But I enjoyed the show. I thought it was a pretty interesting look into the life of Mike Tyson. It brought up some good moral questions for me, which I bring up in my review. You can find that on this channel, and just conversations that I think maybe we should have as a culture in general. Again, not groundbreaking stuff, but it is a nice, interesting look into the life of Mike Tyson. A bit over-edited, generally very flashy show, but pretty good. The Rehearsal, Season 1, was Nathan Fielder. The whole Nathan for You. I haven't seen that show, but it is a fan favorite of many people. And it's pretty good. 6 episodes long. He goes through his whole shtick. interviews a ton of random strangers and just acts very odd and weird with them and does a lot of crazy things. I don't want to spoil it too much. I think it is better to go in dark. But the rehearsal season 1 is going to move past Mike for me here. It's a hilarious show. I had a great time with it, and I'm excited for season 2. Then we're going to go down here to Murderville season 1 versus Stranger Things season 4. And Murderville is just an enjoyable show. It's improv comedy with Will Arnett. He's the mainstay of the show. He's a detective, and each episode he brings on some celebrity to help him crack a case. And it's a neat concept. I hope they keep doing it. They did a Christmas special recently, which I really enjoyed. I reviewed it, actually in my last video. You can check that out. And I like the show a lot, but it's nothing super special. Stranger Things season 4, on the other hand, I mean, this isn't really fair. Insanely high budget, insanely high concept show, and it was very good. I had some problems with it. It was just a little long. I mean, a lot of the episodes just dragged on, and not all the plots here did it for me because you have a lot of characters that they have to explore. But for the most part, this was just epic, right? It was on a grand scale, unlike anything we've ever seen before. Sort of unprecedented boundaries for television, in my opinion. Just completely. I mean, the last episode was 2.5 hours, so we're talking a movie here, and it's just every episode felt constantly like sort of a short film, just a franchise of films, I guess, if you will. So Stranger Things season 4 is going to move past Murderville for me here. Very entertaining, and a great season for a great show by all means. Then the battle of Disney Plus down here. Look at these. All 3 of these are Disney Plus. Moon Knight season 1 versus Tales of the Jedi, and Moon Knight season 1 is actually favored here in this matchup, and if you know me, if you follow in this channel, I talked about it in my Moon Knight video, and I talked about it in my Phase 4 ranking. I thoroughly disliked Moon Knight. It was not a show that I enjoyed really whatsoever. Had a ton of problems with it, and if you're a Moon Knight fan, I know it has its fans. I would hope maybe you would look at some of my criticism, see what I didn't like, because I wanted to like it. I wanted to go in and love it. But I had way more problems with it than things I enjoyed. Generally, one of my least favorite shows of the year. Tales of the Jedi, on the other hand, was quite the surprise. It's pretty short, not a ton of long-form content there, but it was great for me. I think it really does a good job of following what the Clone Wars did, which is fill in these gaps of knowledge about pre-existing Star Wars content. So you have Dooku and then Ahsoka as well get new episodes to flesh out their characters, where they were at the time of the prequels, their philosophies, and just really help to build out the lore of Star Wars in general. And Tales of the Jedi is going to move past Moon Knight here, because I didn't like Moon Knight really at all, and Tales of the Jedi was a great show. Look at that, a 20th seed advancing in round 1. That is a Cinderella story right there. We'll keep an eye on that, but for now we're going to move over here to the other side of the bracket. First up, we have Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Ozark Season 4. Obi-Wan, obviously another Star Wars show on Disney+. Cut to the chase, not great. Did not love it. It had some stuff that I liked. I was super excited about it like everybody else, but it was pretty messy. The visual effects are all over the place here, and it doesn't look like the greatest show, and the script here is just pretty poor. It's not particularly well written. Obi-Wan Kenobi was a big disappointment, but Obi-Wan Kenobi would be one of my least favorite shows in any year. But this also happens to be the year where we received Ozark Season 4. And I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I think the most viewed video on this channel is still my Ozark Season 4 Part 2 review. Part 1 of Season 4, it came out in 2 parts. First part came out in February or something like that. Second part, April. Part 1 is great. Same old, generally good content. Not best content in the show, but pretty solid. And then Part 2 came out, and it just fell off a cliff for me. It felt unbelievably rushed. They had no idea what they were doing. Every idea that they came up with, I hated. And in general, it just felt like they were trying to run the show in the ground with this last little portion. And unfortunately, it's not only clouded how I feel about Season 4 in general, because again, Part 1 is good, Part 2 not good. But the Part 2, as the climax of the show, has completely clouded how I feel about the entire show. Ozark was one of my favorite shows of all time prior to Season 4, and I could not in good confidence call it that anymore. So in the future, if I were to ever rewatch, I would be skipping Season 4. So Obi-Wan Kenobi somehow The gods have favored it, and it will be advancing to round 2. Then we have The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 1 versus Upload Season 2. And if you know me at all, you're saying, Ethan, why are these two shows here? You would not peg me for somebody to watch these two. The Summer I Turned Pretty, I watched on a deal, a bet with a friend of mine. But don't worry, she had to watch Breaking Bad. So I think we all know who won that deal. But I enjoyed The Summer I Turned Pretty. I think it was, obviously cheesy. Again, nothing groundbreaking, very formulaic, simple television here. But it still won me over. It did some pretty good stuff. It did the genre well, is what I'll say. And so for the brief time that it existed in my life, I enjoyed it. I was never shying away from the content. Upload Season 2, I watched Upload Season 1. I actually liked that as well. It was on Amazon Prime. And I thought the criticisms here were a lot more interesting than anybody was giving it credit for. The humor, not exactly, but I think the concepts that it explored in general, not the most subtle, right? It's not a fantastic piece of television, but it was a good time. A little bit of romance in there, the typical television tropes that made it good. Upload Season 2 did not live up to that, in my opinion. I thought the criticism was far weaker. It relied a lot more on just basic storytelling. It was even less funny, and so it was completely forgettable. I watched it all in one sitting, almost immediately forgot everything, and it has significantly decreased my enjoyment of the show. So, wouldn't you know it, a show that I never would have watched outside of that deal, The Summer I Turned Pretty, is going to move to round 2. Then you have The Crown Season 5 versus The Cabinet of Curiosities. This is insane. If I'm not mistaken, so The Crown Season 5, the second lowest rated show of the year. And that baffles me. That is genuinely insane to me. Meanwhile, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, top 10. Top 10 best show of the year. Now, if you ask me, this should be flipped. Because The Crown Season 5, not perfect by any means, pretty flawed. Not one of the best seasons of The Crown, which is a great show, but not one of the worst at all. I thought it perfectly was fine, if not good. I enjoyed the season. It brought me everything The Crown has in the past. Great history, great cinematography, just a well-produced television show in general. Incredible acting, good lord. Captivating writing. It has everything The Crown always brings. Cabinet of Curiosities, on the other hand, is a show I was super excited for. I have a review of that one as well, and you can tell just off the title that I did not like this show. It is my least favorite show of the year. Each episode is, not each episode, there's some good in there, at least one episode that I liked, but there's 8 of them. They are either boring, awful concepts in general that should never have been made. I'm looking at you, Graveyard Rats. They start fine, but they just drive off a ditch at some point. Every single episode has a problem here, and I do dive into it in depth in my review, so if you're interested in seeing that, you can go check that out. But I hated The Cabinet of Curiosities. It is not only my least favorite show of the year, one of my least favorite shows I've seen in a while. It would probably be at the bottom in any year. So The Crown Season 5, with number 23 seed, now that's a Cinderella story, is going to advance. And then you have Rick and Morty Season 6, which I also actually just did a review of in my last video, versus Winning Time Season 1. And Rick and Morty Season 6 is not great. Didn't live up to the rest of the Rick and Morty seasons, in my opinion. And in general, it started off fine. It has some good episodes. It's not bad. It's not a bad season of television, but it was very underwhelming. And the main thing here, the main problem that I had, and again, you can see me speak more in depth about this in my last review, is the fact that it just didn't have a through line that made it super compelling or interesting. And so Rick and Morty Season 6 is up against Winning Time Season 1, which is a phenomenal show. A phenomenal show. It explores the history of the 1980s Lakers, the legends like Kareem, like Magic, and it is just so goddamn interesting. The writing here is phenomenal. And the way the show is presented in general is just fantastic. It's fantastic. This is a golden age of television. I don't care what anybody else says. Sure, their budgets are being inflated like crazy, but I'm enjoying this content. I'm very happy we're getting a Season 2. Not nearly enough people have seen this show. So while Rick and Morty Season 6 was just fine, Winning Time Season 1 is going to advance. And so now we are in round 2, and what is this? This is the because this is the semi. No, this is the semi. This is the final. These are the quarters. So what is this? This is our Sweet 16. Let's move over here with Barry Season 3, the 1 seed, versus She-Hulk Season 1. Already talked about She-Hulk. Barry, phenomenal show. Each season better than the last. Season 3 is no different in my opinion. I thought it was it gets even darker than prior seasons. The comedy is even funnier this time around. In general, the stuff that they're doing is very ambitious, very clever, and I adore this show. And honestly, it deserves the 1 seed here. It absolutely deserves the 1 seed, and it is going to storm past She-Hulk. Again, a show that I liked, but Barry is just on a completely different level. And then you have the battle of the mid. I don't mean any offense. It's just the 8 and 9 seed. They're pretty close in seeding. Peacemaker Season 1 versus The Rehearsal. Both shows that I enjoy. I do enjoy both of these shows, but I do think I slightly preferred The Rehearsal. I thought it was funnier. It's a bit shorter. I had a better time with it in general. Peacemaker, not, James Gunn's brand of humor. It's funny. I do laugh, but it's not always my favorite thing. It just gets a little too raunchy for me sometimes. But The Rehearsal just blew me away. With, again, this is an ambitious show. It's hilarious. And I'm a Nathan Fielder fan now after seeing this. The episode 1 in particular, by the way, if you have heard of the show, maybe you want to check it out a little bit, just watch episode 1. Easily the best episode in my opinion. It is crazy. And go in blind. Don't know anything about it because it is truly an experience. It's maybe one of the best episodes of television of the year. So The Rehearsal Season 1 is going to advance to the quarterfinals. Let's move on to both pretty high budget shows, some of the most popular shows of the year. The Boys Season 3, the 5 seed, versus 12th seed Stranger Things Season 4. And The Boys is a show that I adore. It's been going on for a while now. Again, this is a show that gets better with each season, in my opinion. Season 3 is no different. And I adore this show. It's very entertaining. The critiques of our society that they have are brilliant. It does get a little raunchy at times, but my God, they just pull it off so well. And the shock value, it works to the show's benefit, in my opinion, most of the time. And so The Boys Season 3, great experience. I got to watch it with friends, so I do think that helped, improve my opinion and overall just feeling about it, because I remember it very fondly for that reason. I think it's a great show. It's going to move past Stranger Things Season 4. Sorry, Netflix, the budget couldn't save you. And then you have, again, the battle of Disney+. This was foretold last round. Tales of the Jedi versus Miss Marvel. 20th seed versus, and this surprised me, the 4th seed is Miss Marvel Season 1. I enjoyed Miss Marvel Season 1. It's also not the 4th best show of the year because I think it has a lot of promise. It's very flashy, a lot of fun. The editing here is great. Again, it's something new for Marvel in general, but it completely loses me with the plot here because the villain is awful. The whole MacGuffin of the story is not entertaining. The action isn't great, and it just falls into the same trap as so many of these Marvel Disney Plus shows. So specifically, Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel is absolutely the standout here. She carries it completely, as well as just the editing and overall tone of the series I enjoyed. But Tales of the Jedi, as a Star Wars fan, I guess I'm a Marvel fan as well, but Tales of the Jedi is a show that I preferred. Okay, let's move it on over. These are your quarterfinalists from the west side of the bracket. Over here, some heavy matchups. Better Call Saul Season 6 versus Obi-Wan Kenobi. We already talked about Obi-Wan. Let's not kid ourselves. It got very lucky that it was facing Ozark Season 4, so it gets to move on to round 2. Better Call Saul Season 6. Better Call Saul is my favorite show of all time. Season 6 was an excellent finale, all anybody could ask for. I did have some issues with it because a lot of both in part 1 and part 2, you have some episodes here that, you're asking yourself, do these really need to be included in the finale of this show, right? Where we're really dragging on for time here. This feels like these things could be handled in one episode max. And honestly, I'm going to be entirely honest with you right now. If they just cut down on some of these episodes that just feel drawn out and unnecessarily long, I think you've got yourself the best season of television of all time, because the highs here are unbelievably high. But the lows here do unfortunately bring it down slightly. But that is not going to stop it, even close, from moving past Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's moving on to the quarterfinals. Then you have the little Summer I Turned Pretty that could versus Severance Season 1. Severance, these are two surprises of the year for me. Severance was a show I almost didn't check out, but I'd heard a lot of buzz about it. I heard it was by Ben Stiller, and I heard it was on Apple TV, which it was, of course, something I had. And so I checked it out. It's brilliant stuff. It's brilliant stuff. Again, you got a lot of shows that are just critiquing the society we live in, capitalism in general this year, that are brilliant. We're going to discuss one of those in just a second there. But Severance, very, very funny. And it is just brilliant the way that this story is told, the way it's shot. The score here is brilliant. It's a very well filmed, very, very technically proficient show. And so on top of being entertaining, it is just one of the best shows of the year. So I'm sorry the summer I turned pretty, but the road ends here for you. Severance is going to move on. Not a ton of surprises so far. I guess maybe Tales of the Jedi, a little bit of a surprise there. But next up we have Andor Season 1 versus The Crown Season 5. And Andor Season 1, you may have already heard people talk about it. Again, not enough people have watched this show, but it is phenomenal. It takes the Star Wars universe and does what creatives should be doing with the Star Wars universe and should have been doing for years now, decades now, which is tell different stories. And so even though Cassian Andor is a character we've seen before, even though a lot of these characters are characters we've seen before, it tells a completely unique and refreshing story. And that is a story I've been wanting to be told for a while. The story of the rebellion on the ground level. Not the big ship battles, not the lightsaber fights with Sith and Jedi, but your average everyday rebel. And each arc in this series, of which there are many, is unbelievably captivating. Specifically, I want to call attention to the prison break, the whole prison aspect of that show, and obviously the heist that they pull off pretty early on, are just brilliant stuff. The show can be a little slow, specifically at the beginning and the end. I started to feel its length, but that whole middle section and really just the overall bulk of the show was unbelievably entertaining, had a lot to say, some of the best writing of the year in any medium, and it's a phenomenal show. So while The Crown Season 5, again, is not getting its due respect here, the 23rd seed is absurd. I don't think anybody who's seen the series would tell you that it belongs this low, but it's not going to beat Andor. So again, no surprise here, but the favorite is going to move past. And then you have Winning Time Season 1 versus The Bear Season 1, the number 2 seed overall. People love this show. Again, if you haven't seen it, it's a Hulu show about this renowned chef who takes over this small little kitchen in Chicago, I think, and it's a bit of a mess. You know, he's working with a ton of no-names, a ton of bums who are just messing up and about, and it's a super fun watch, right? It's very short, unbelievably tense. The filmmaking, the way that they're able to make this just a frenetic show and super exciting is very admirable. The acting here is great. I love some of these performances, and in general, it's one of the surprises of the year. I am glad to say that it is a great show, and I would recommend anybody check it out. It's on Hulu, very short. Some of the episodes are like 20, 30 minutes max, and it's like 7 episodes total. And I like where they leave us for a potential future for Season 2 of The Bear. So I'm excited to continue it. But it unfortunately had to come up against Winning Time Season 1, which again, I've already discussed it, just a phenomenally interesting show. And so I'm not even a massive basketball fan, but the way the show managed to grab me with the performances and the editing and everything about it, really the writing, good Lord, this is a great show. So I'm very sorry to say, and this is a true Cinderella story, the 18th seed Winning Time is going to have to move past The Bear Season 1. I'm sorry, The Bear. I'm sorry, The Bear fans. If you haven't seen it, please still check it out. And so now we move on to the quarterfinals. And wow, guys, you've got some great competition here. Let's get into it. Barry Season 3 versus The Rehearsal Season 1. This is not particularly tough for me because, again, we discussed it here. She-Hulk is a good show. It's a show that I like. The Rehearsal's a good show. It's a show that I liked. Barry's on a different level. It's operating on a completely different level with the stuff it's doing, with the comedy it's doing, with the darkness, the general atmosphere of the show that it's doing, and some of the things that we get in Season 3. I'm talking the car chase was the highlight for me. unbelievable. Just unbelievably good stuff. And again, you leave it off with a cliffhanger, which is sort of a Barry staple at this point. Barry Season 3 in a league of its own, and it's moving on to the semis. Then we're going to take The Boys Season 3 versus Tales of the Jedi. And now we've got some Cinderella stories in this bracket, folks. Tales of the Jedi, Winning Time Season 1. Tales of the Jedi, great show, by all means. Short content. I'm honestly a little surprised that it got this far. I think it got a little lucky with its competition. But still a good show. The Boys Season 3 in a league of its own. Just unbelievably entertaining. And I'm a sucker for The Boys. It is one of my favorite shows of all time at this point, honestly. And it keeps solidifying that. I was a little nervous. Season 3 wasn't going to live up to it. Blew me out of the water. And so The Boys Season 3, with its incredible cast of characters, with its ever-expanding plot lines that just continue to captivate me, is going to move past Tales of the Jedi to face off Barry in the semifinals. Then over here you have Better Call Season 6 versus Severance Season 1. And these are hurting. These are hurting matchups. These two were kind of easy, but these two, this is not fun. Again, Severance was a surprise for me. I was super excited to see that it was as enjoyable as it was. Should I close that? I should close that, huh? Give me a sec. So I was impressed with Severance as a show. But when it comes to the greats, when it comes to the best shows of the year, it's got to be Better Call Saul Season 6. Again, we talked about those highs. The highs of this season, I don't want to spoil anything in case anybody's out there watching, but they are just so damn good. I'm sorry, Severance. It is still one of my favorite shows of the year, but Better Call Saul Season 6 is better. And then you have Andor Season 1 versus Winning Time Season 1. And again, two seasons of television that are great. Both blew me out of the water. Both are ones that I was excited for, and both outlived my expectations. And at the end of the day, I just slightly had more problems with Andor. I just had more problems with Andor. If we're talking about the whole show in general, if we're talking about the highs, Andor is up there with Better Call Saul. Maybe it doesn't beat it, but it's up there with Better Call Saul. But if we're talking about some of the lows, it's just a little too slow for me to fully call it one of the best shows of the year. No, I'm sorry. Well, it is one of the best shows of the year. I take that back. It is absolutely one of the best shows of the year. But when it comes up against a show like Winning Time, again, an 18th seed, that's unbelievable to me. That tells me not nearly enough people have watched this, or I'm just delusional because I enjoyed this show so much. And this might be crazy, but it's moving past Andor. And here we are in the semifinals. I could not ask for four better shows. And I'll tell you right now, these are my top four of the year. I guess that makes sense. I don't know how it would be anything else because I am the one filling out the bracket. But anyway, Barry Season 3 and The Boys Season 3, I'm actually glad that they ended up on the same side of the bracket because this is one I've been struggling with for a while. And that's because both are Season 3s of the show. I have enjoyed both for a long time at this point. They both came out similar times in the year, so I got to enjoy both at the same time. And they're also both a part of shows that have gotten better with each season as it passes. And so this is very difficult to me because they're both great shows. I love them both. They came out at around the same times. I started watching Barry later, but still that applies here. So this is a perfect matchup. This is an absolutely perfect matchup. And it's one that I struggle with today. It's one that I've been struggling with all year since the show started, since they finished. And it's one that I will continue to struggle with after this bracket, as I might change my mind. I might change my mind and then change it back. I might change my mind and then change it back and then change it back again, because that's how close these two are. But if you're asking me right now, if you're asking me for most of the year, I'm going to say I preferred The Boys Season 3. The Boys Season 3. It's a show that means more to me personally. Again, both shows, these are back-to-back shows on my top 10 shows of all time. They both cracked the list for top 10 favorite shows of all time, and they're back-to-back. So both phenomenal shows. We'll have to see, again, how my opinion changes over time, but right now, Boys Season 3 as a show means more to me than Barry. It's one I had a great time with, and a phenomenally told story. And then on this side of things, you have the best show to ever do it, in my opinion, versus an up-and-comer. And Better Call Saul Season 6, I'm going to say it one last time. The highs of Better Call Saul Season 6 are going to beat any other highs of any other show that's ever come out. Just some of the best television of all time. I truly cannot tell you how much this show means to me, how much this season means to me, how good this season is. And again, this might be crazy, but I only had one problem with Winning Time, and that was the little filter that they put on every episode. They're trying to make it look 80s, and it bothered me a little at times. But even with that, I found myself invested with this season. And look, I might rewatch someday, and I might think I'm absolutely insane for doing this. But Better Call Saul season 6 has just, I would say 5 episodes of content in its, 13 episode run that just don't serve purpose in bringing this show to its conclusion. And they could have been dealt with differently. And so for that reason, the 18th seed, the true Cinderella underdog, Winning Time season 1, is going to create. You've just clicked off the video, you disliked it, you're never going to watch another video on the channel, you unsubscribed, you made accounts, you subscribed, and then you unsubscribed again. But I'm sorry. If you haven't seen it, just watch it. Just check it out, because it really is that good. And then a finale for the ages. The Boys season 3 versus Winning Time season 1. Both shows that mean incredible amounts to me. The Boys cracks my top 10 of all time. The Winning Time, only one season so far, right? This is an up-and-comer, truly. It has not had a ton of time. It's not an experience like the big boys here. But which show meant more to me? Which did I enjoy more? I'm going Winning Time season 1. You might think I'm crazy. I think most people have seen The Boys. They love it. It's great, rightfully. Not a lot of people have seen Winning Time. I'm telling you, you got to check this show out, because not only is it all true, it's true like The Crown, right? Like, they embellish a ton of stuff, but it is very, very fascinating. Very fascinating stuff. Even if you know it, even if you think you know it, even if you don't like basketball or don't care or don't like sports or anything, just check this show out, because it's got an amazing cast of characters, each of which is fleshed out, given their own motivation and purpose. And it blew me away repeatedly with how sensitive it could be, with how goddamn entertaining it was, thoroughly, repeatedly. It captivated me from 1 to 10 episodes every time for all 50 minutes, 60 minutes of the runtime. I don't know if I could say that about any other show this year. I was hooked from start to finish, every single episode. And, even a show like The Boys, I had some issues with it, story-wise. Better Call Saul, I already have spoken about my issues. Barry, well, I don't know. That one's tough, but just not as on the level, maybe, of some of these other shows here. But Winning Time season 1, undeniable feat, undeniable achievement, in my opinion. And please check this one out if you haven't. So, folks, that'll be my bracket. This is a long video. I was not expecting it to be this long. Just think about movies. If we did movies, I've seen like 90. So we're talking like a 2-hour video there. But if you guys like this, please let me know. Please actually let me know if you enjoyed this concept, or if you would just prefer a ranking, or if you would prefer I just deactivate the channel and shut it down tomorrow, and I will do whatever you want, because I'm a man of the people. So, folks, I did this on Bracket HQ. I told you how I did it, so if you want to do just a similar thing, I think that could be cool. I want to see something of what you guys come up with. If you want to send me a link of your own bracket, or a photo, I don't know how that works. I don't know if you can do that in YouTube comments, or maybe just type out in the comments, give me a ranking of your favorite shows of the year, or if you agree or disagree with anything that I said. So, folks, I will see you in the next video for 2023 television. Just kidding, that'll be a ways off. But I like this concept. I like brackets in general. I'm a bracket guy. Maybe I'm the only one. But, yeah, let me know if you want to see this for movies, for other things in general, and I will see you in the next video. Go watch Winning Time right now, and watch all of these shows. They're all good. Not all of them. Not Ozark or Boba Fett, but the good ones are good. Bye-bye.